Oh, AP, I like what you did to me. Won't you take me to the sky? Usually I'm motion deep, no hoes, I got my phone on D&D. I love it when you drive me by the beach. Outside I'm a classy little piece, but inside I be ratchet in the sheets. If you wanna bust down, turn uptown. It's so good it got me shook. Got me showing out, it's a show now. I do anything to make it look. Some about the way you stare at me. Like you might put a spell on me. Some about the way that you stare at me. Watching vividly. I know you like it what you see.
Oh, I could play that whole song. And as it was, I was doing a medium amount of chair dancing. It was dad chair dancing. It was dad dancing in a chair. All the same. I hope you had a similar experience. This is, first of all, my name is Colin McEnroe. This is Ask or Tell Me Anything. So today, you will be able to call 888. You currently are able to call 888-720-9677, aka 888-720-WNPR. Now, once you do that, you will be greeted by any number of nice people who are in there. And I'm just telling you this in case it becomes apparent that it's the case. The phone system, the system by which your phone call is identified to me, does not work today. So we'll have to do something more. What you may hear is either a pigeon or a monkey. We haven't really, this is a game time decision. Either a pigeon or a monkey will come in here and give me the name. And the pigeon, by the way, in case you want to know, the pigeon would have your name and your town and your topic in its beak because it's unwieldy. It's cumbersome to have the pigeon with a message tied to its leg, right? I mean, that's just never going to work because then I have to untie and the pigeon doesn't like it. And it's just, so the pigeon will have it in his beak. Or we do have a monkey in a top hat. That's the other thing. So he might bring it in. But I will not be able to use my usual method of figuring out which call I'm going to take. I'm going to just see if it magically healed itself. Just go over there for a second. No, it didn't. Never mind. All right. So meanwhile, while I wait for that, so the number, did I say the number? 888-720-9677. I think I did. It's all coming back to me like the hot kiss at the end of a wet fist. 888-720-WNPR. And I should tell you, if you don't know, that the bill, which I think we all have to agree as a civilized society, and even some of the uncivilized members of society, we have to stop calling it the big, beautiful bill. It's not a big, beautiful bill. That he wants it to be called a big, beautiful bill, but it's not. It's not one. But it has been passed, but in some version of it, some far worse version of it than existed, say, 48 hours ago, has now been passed by the United States Senate. May God have mercy on their souls. But we don't have to talk merely about that. The whole concept of Ask or Tell Me Anything is that, we could talk about anything, and frequently do. So you can call up about the arts. You can call up about some personal dilemma in your life. You could call up with a deep philosophical question. And I'm not so far seeing callers in Slack, but why would that be? I do not know. All right. We got a call here from Lake Como. I'm not being told in my headphones. We have a call from Lake Como Dave. You're on the air, Lake Como Dave.
Hi, Colin. Are you reading me nice and clear?
Good. Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, you know me. I would normally try to come in with some sort of a counterpoint, something from music or the arts or some quirky thing, but we have to face this thing head on, just this atrocity that happened an hour ago at the Senate. And, the political calculation that the Republicans were making, it seemed so hopeless based on what would be likely to happen in the midterms and later, that I initially, I thought a few days ago that they were just figuring they'd take their lumps in the midterms and that by the next presidential election, which is totally reasonable the way Americans have gone in recent years, we'd all just forget about it and, they could win again and be back in power. But based on what we're learning about what's gone into this bill, this is more how I see it. as far as the danger that lies ahead, is that all the money that is being funneled now in this, once this passes the House, to Eric Prince and his goons, just incredible, like $25 to $40 billion was what I had read, for him to, organize this mysterious militia, which we're seeing, the tip of that spear in L.A. and other places with what I'm convinced are a lot of January 6th pardoned convicts wearing those, face coverings and, no discernible uniform, but they're supposedly ICE agents. I think that they're so confident, the Republicans are, in what they're putting in place now to disappear people who have different viewpoints, who they think are going to make trouble for the election. I think they're going to really move into high gear on that now as quietly as they can, but I think we're going to start seeing people disappear that aren't just some, immigrants or people that they can classify as the other. But I think being a Democrat is going to become very dangerous, and they're going to disappear a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could vehemently disagree with you, but a lot of the signs are there, and you can see that President Trump does not brook dissent very well. I mean, even with the reporting on the DIA intelligence estimate on the Iran bombing, I mean, nobody has questioned the accuracy of that reporting or the existence of that preliminary intelligence report, but he wanted to sue the outlets that reported it, which, I mean, a lot of these things, even given how rigged up the courts are starting to be, a lot of these things just never get off the launch pad. But you can, I do agree that increasingly, whether it's forcing the president of the University of Virginia out of office, or suing the press for doing its job, or appearing to persecute on an immigration basis people who have just dissented in ways that the administration doesn't care for, that an awful lot of the signs of an autocratic repression of speech are right there in place. Now, I think the important thing to remember is this is when we make a lot of noise. And it is important to get those points across I mean, I was just listening to Chris Murphy. I don't know whether it was Chris Murphy who was saying it or the host, but he's kind of the lead guest on Pod Save America that dropped I think it might have dropped last night. But they were just saying, make the phones ring, call your representatives. I mean, this bill is going to go back to the House now. Obviously there's not a vote for it here in Connecticut, but anybody anywhere else, I mean, calling these representatives. Let me just say an interesting thing about all this, too. I don't know whether it's interesting or not, but Tom Tillis is an interesting case in point, because Tom Tillis has gone from being this kind of nervous, quasi lapdog who's kind of maybe going to make a little barking noise here and there, to, upon deciding that he no longer wants to serve in the Senate, he's loud and proud right now, and he is speaking his truth and spoke his truth from the Senate floor. And you realize how many of these people are cowed, not because of the awesome might of the U.S. presidency, but because they don't want to be primaried. And the minute Tom Tillis understood or decided he wasn't going to run, so he couldn't be primaried, I started telling the truth. So it's not as though the on switch for the truth doesn't exist in any of these people. It exists in a lot of them. I don't know what happened to Lisa. I do know what happened to Lisa Murkowski this time, which is she just kind of got bought off on behalf of Alaska, which strikes me as intellectually kind of dishonest. But nobody should assume that there's nothing that they can do. There's lots that you can do. And all these protests are important. And the more that we, stand together against a lot of this really objectionable stuff, the less likely an intensification of autocracy, or at least so we hope, Dave. But yes, I don't blame you for not talking about Mendelssohn today. Okay, so Dave is on his way. Okay, now I've discovered, we really are having some problems, that if I look at my phone, I can find out who else is on the line. So let's sort of switch gears here. Let's talk to James right now. This is James, who is in his car. Hi, James.
Hello.
Hi, James.
Hey, All right, so I wanted to talk about my second favorite genre of music, which is soundtracks from video games. I think more people need to listen to these because they are explicitly designed to evoke emotion. They're always playing in the background when you're doing something, and they're designed to accompany action or emotion. And I would recommend to anybody who doubts me to listen to the soundtracks from a couple of games. I would pitch Christopher Larkin composed the soundtrack to Hollow Knight, beautiful classical music. In the same vein, people may have seen this floating around, being all over the news. Lorien Testard composed the soundtrack to the game Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which debuted at number 1 on the top 100 classical music Billboard. That soundtrack is beautiful. I could also list Christopher Christodoulou, who composed the soundtrack to Risk of Rain and Risk of Rain 2, along with Deadbolt. And Kaiki Kobayashi is the composer for the Ace Combat series.
I mean, some of these people these are some pretty fancy names you're throwing out there. It's too bad I should have kept Lake Como Dave on the air because he has, of course, worked in the classical and orchestral music field for a really long time. He'd be interested in that. And I do have to say, James, we are talking, I think when you do a job like mine, you try to know at least a little about everything. There's sort of a joke with the people that I walk with every morning that I'm about a half inch deep on everything. I don't know a lot, but I know something. And, video games are one of the places that I think I know I'm not even a half inch deep. And God knows the soundtracks of video games would therefore. But that's a really intriguing thing and I think it's probably because these video games, now the makers of them have enough money, to hire a pretty fancy composer. And not only that, but I think as you're suggesting, the video game's success includes a certain level of engagement. And engagement, which Bernard Herrmann could have told you back when he was writing soundtracks for Hitchcock movies or scores for Hitchcock movies, engagement can happen through music. So it's a really interesting idea. I wish I knew more about it. I wish I could hold up my end of the conversation.
Well, if nothing else, I would recommend just checking out a couple of the soundtracks I mentioned. But if you really want to feel moved, I would listen to Deep Stone Lullaby, which is a track off of the Destiny 2 soundtrack. They fired the guy who composed that because Bungie apparently hates money. But it is one of the most moving and engaging pieces of music I think I have ever heard.
All right. I hope everybody's jotting this down. Maybe we can transcribe it and post it somewhere, all these suggestions of yours, because I think there are a lot of people who like music but don't like video games who might be very interested in all this. But James, thank you very much for your call. We're going to move around the board now. I'm checking my phone. Let's go to William from Middletown. William, you have the floor whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you. Whenever I contemplate doing your call-in show, I think, well, there's two ways I can go. I can go current events, or I can go something Colin talked about in one of his previous shows. And I kind of tend towards that direction, but I had not heard that the Senate had voted positively for this stupid bill. And I agree with you. We shouldn't be calling it as the big, beautiful thing.
I'm suggesting bean brain boondoggle as a possible alternative.
Well,
that way you don't have to buy new towels. You still get the towels that say BBB, but it's bean brain boondoggle.
Well, that could be that. But anyway, so now I'm a little torn because I was glad that you had the show about reading last week, and I was thinking before I heard that show that there is a shortage of people doing serious reading around. As I think I've told you, I collect rare books, and I have a pretty good library. You should come over sometime and check it out. But anyway, so I love to read, and I have since I was a kid. I grew up with this set of books called Journeys Through Bookland, and it was 9 volumes, printed in 1905 or something like that, and it had all the kind of things that a boy would like back in that day, and Edgar Allan Poe stories and King Arthur type of stories. But I loved it, and it made me feel really special when I read those stories in that book. And so I grew up wanting to repeat having that experience through reading. And I went through phases of science fiction, and I think I decided to read all of Thomas Wolfe's books. I don't mean the late Thomas Wolfe, but the early Thomas Wolfe.
Okay.
And,
they're both late
like
at this
that.
point, but yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so now I'm feeling that torn because of I've been dreading what's going on politically, and my son and I talk about it quite a bit. I tell him, look, I said, we went through something kind of similar in the 60s. I went on lots of protests, movements. I was out west, and we went to Sandia Air Force Base and all these different places. And it was something that made us feel we were doing something. I noticed in Middletown we had a protest a couple of weeks ago on that thing about no kings. And I said, that's good. I'm glad they're doing that. I think we do have to make some noise, definitely make some noise, and tell people that it's time to make a change. Reading, once again, I think reading is something that is a legal high if you indulge in it. I love to go Saturdays, go to the bookstore and wander around, and but anyway.
Yeah, no, I think first of all, this little segue into another call we've got about the humanities, but the defunding of the humanities and there's really sort of almost a bipartisan collaboration on the idea that STEM is way more important, humanities less important, and an awful lot of people have kind of fallen into the line with that well before the current horrible moment. And the problem with that is that the humanities are the things that allow you to think critically and empathetically and evaluate decisions made in the world of STEM, a world where nobody has absorbed any of the humanities through reading. Is a world in which we're going to make bad decisions about technology.
Oh, yeah.
So I totally agree with you. I also wanted to share with you a story from the life of a writer. So right now, so I should say, so my literary agent, or the agency that represents me, which I haven't written a book in ages. So I got a call or an email saying, is this still your address? Because the check has come in. So I wrote back and I said, oh, by all means, this is my address. By all means, send me my check for $1.35, which I thought was a reasonable guess about what I would get. And so, right now, my significant other's trying to buy a car, and cars are very expensive. And so I went and I picked up the mail yesterday, and I saw the agency's postmark or whatever it is, return address. And I opened it up, and I had actually, William, I had overestimated. I got 81 cents. For my second book called Lose Weight Through Great Sex with Celebrities, I had gotten 81 cents. And I'm that it could be a down payment on a car, but it's certainly not going to buy the entire car. So for those of you out there thinking about becoming authors, think carefully before you do that. And William, thank you very much for your call. I think what we should do right now is go to a break. We'll go to one of these breaks, and when we come back, we'll talk to Terry about the humanities and whoever else is around, according to my phone.
Of the wonderful things that you get in a life, there are four. Now there may not be many, but nobody needs any more. Of the many facts making the list of life, truth takes the lead, and you relax knowing the gist of life is truth you need. Then the second is honor, and happiness makes number three. When you put them together, you know what the last one must be. Baby, so the truth, honor, and happiness, and one thing more, meaning only wonderful, wonderful love that'll make it four.
Some of these songs I pick out, I like so much, I don't want to have to hear me talk. And that would be another example. Great cover of that, Miles Dune. All right, so we are doing Ask or Tell Me Anything. It's a special technical difficulties episode of Ask or Tell Me Anything. I am now using exclusively my iPhone to inform myself about what's happening. However, our number is 888-720-9677. Everything's working fine in the control room. So when you call in, Robin Doyen-Aiken or Isaac or somebody is going to talk to you, and then good things will happen. They just won't happen quite as apparently for me. 888-720-WNPR. Let's go to a couple of calls we've already got up here. We got Terry from Portland, and he, I believe, wants to talk about the humanities. Hi, Terry.
Good afternoon. Usually I'm talking about Capital for Change, but today I'm putting my America 250 hat on. As many people are familiar with America 250 and all the towns across the United States, next year will be the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And towns all across the U.S. and more than 100 here in Connecticut are putting together programs, events, and happenings leading up to the Declaration of Independence and all of the related dates and activities. So a fundraising effort is going on a statewide basis. Connecticut Humanities has set up a platform. Many people are used to it on the Give Local campaign and the New Haven Community Foundation Great Give. If you go to give250ct.org, that's give250ct.org, all of the towns, you just search for whatever town you want to support. There's plenty of information, and this will go on. It's a 250-hour campaign that just started this morning. So if you want to do the division, that's 10 and a half days. But for the next 245 hours, you can go on that website, help support at any level in your town, any effort, program, event, or whatnot. And I encourage you to go to the town websites. Facebook has a number. You can go to town halls usually.
I second that emotion. First of all, Terry, thank you so much for your call. And I'll just sort of put a little, bow on that and say, and it kind of connects to what I was saying to William before. Orwell in 1984, there's that famous line, which I will now butcher, but it's something like, who controls the past controls the present. Who controls the present controls the future. Almost all of the conversations that we have in the public sphere that are value-driven are, to a certain degree, connected to our past. If you understand America a certain way, then if you understand the American past a certain way, you'll understand this moment in a way that's tinctured by that. And it's why it's important to understand the past well and to do critical thinking about the past. And, of course, there's that moment, and I'm sure many of you have seen the clip of it, where Terry Moran is in the Oval Office with President Trump, and he points to the framed Declaration of Independence on the wall and just asks Trump something about what it means to him and what it's like to have it there just, a head turn away. And President Trump says, to me, it's about love and unity. And he goes on, and it's just clear that he literally it's not that he's lying about the Declaration of Independence. He literally doesn't know what it is, and he doesn't know what the language is in it. Because, the Declaration of Independence is many things, but a loving document it is not. It is not loving towards the British and towards the king, but it's also not loving towards Native Americans. There's some pretty, aggressive and unpleasant and unenlightened language about them in it. It is essentially a sort of the precursor to a declaration of war. So, to have a president sitting in the Oval Office as I say, with, just able to look at the Declaration of Independence by turning his head and have him not know what it is kind of, it's almost explanatory. It helps you understand how completely untethered from reality, from tradition, from understanding so many of his decisions are. Most of his decisions are essentially about himself, and they are extensions of himself. I mean, he has one abiding, passionate interest, himself. And since he is not mentioned anywhere in the Declaration of Independence, he's not very interested in that. And you can sort of measure most of his behavior that way, but it's important for us not to succumb to that. And it's important for us to understand our past and think critically about it. So, yeah, I mean, the humanities are super important. And it's no accident that kind of funding is being slashed as well. It's exactly okay, now I have to get my phone going again. This is so sad. There we go. I have my phone working. All right, so we're going to go over to, let's go over to Mike from Woodbury. He's been waiting. We also have John from Cromwell, but we'll go to Mike right now. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Colin. So this is not directly related to the BBB boondoggle, but it may become necessary in the future because of it, assuming we're not all disappeared, as late Como Dave was concerned about. And that is something that I haven't heard about at all. It used to be quite common in public discourse, which is universal basic income, which is something that Andrew Yang, when he was running for president and then mayor of New York, was trying to sell. And because of AI, which is stealing a lot of jobs, and kids that went into college 4 years ago, and everybody said, "Oh, go into computer science," because that you're going to get lots of jobs. Well, all of those jobs are being taken by AI because one thing AI is really good at is coding. So I can see a Democrat, whoever decides to run for president in the Democratic Party, God help them, in 2028, maybe this is something that could gain traction again. Universal basic income, give everybody a check, because there are going to be less jobs because of AI.
That's not only Andrew Yang, it's that flaming crypto-socialist liberal Richard Nixon had at least an exploratory interest in universal basic income. So the idea's been around for a while. But you're right. It's unclear to me how the present moment plays out in terms of the American workforce. AI would seem to... AI can do any number of things in any number of situations. It won't always result in downsizing. Sometimes it'll just free up human capital, human bandwidth, so that other jobs can be undertaken. And I think also we're facing a different kind of workforce problem in the sense of the fact that we are not willing to let very many people into this country right now, and we are kicking other people out of the country. And some of these people have skill sets. We're just not talking about, obviously, we're kicking people out of the country who do a lot of the hard, unglamorous work that's just, unskilled labor, basically. But there are also a lot of people who, we're deporting scientists and all kinds of, and people who really have value to us. And that, I don't know what the effect of that's going to be, but maybe the thing that the putative college person got educated in is something that still needs to be done, but the person who was going to get it, who isn't here anymore or wasn't allowed to get in, so there may be opening up our... one thing, there's an interesting lesson to learn about this, oddly enough, from the bombing of Iran, and it's something that people don't pay enough attention to. And one person that I've really kind of homed in on is Rafael Grossi, who's the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, because, I feel like he has a strong incentive to tell the truth. And one thing that he said repeatedly, until I think now everybody else is saying it too, is you can't discount. Now, yes, a lot of people in Iran, a lot of the people who were experts in centrifuge cascades or whatever, have got assassinated or got killed one way or another. But there's still people there. There's the core knowledge about how to do this stuff. And human beings who know how to do things are incredibly valuable in all kinds of different situations, including evaluating the work of AI. AI is still at a point where I don't think anybody has a tremendous amount of just implicit trust. I'm going to ramble here, and I apologize, but one thing I used to tell my students about Wikipedia that I think works better for AI now. Let's imagine you're coming to a big bridge, and that spans a mighty river, and you're in your car, and the sign says this bridge was built entirely using AI. Every calculation about building this bridge, all the skill and technology needed to make this bridge happen came from AI. Would you unhesitatingly drive across that bridge? Because it's an interesting question, right? I mean, do you trust AI enough? Would you let AI do CPR on you, or would you rather have a human being? My guess is that there are still a lot of things that, at minimum, we want human supervision of human checking on, and there might be some things that we really want human beings just to be able to do. So I forget how we started talking about all this, but yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, your point about not allowing people into the country, I don't think AI can pick oranges in the fields of California.
Well, there's that. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think it could definitely steal a lot of jobs. I mean, it's certainly in technology. It seems like. I mean, because that's the one thing it understands is technology.
I mean, that was Yang's bet. Yang was saying the whole time, AI is going to cashier a lot of people, and he's probably right about that. And then the question becomes, okay, so if we're going to do, if we did a universal basic income, where would the funds come from that? We still have to have, pretty substantial GDP in order to do that. And then you start thinking about productivity, and then you start thinking about all the decisions being made in this country. I never thought a Republican-led administration would be so clunky and almost indifferent to questions of productivity. So much of the moves being made right now seem to be about the consolidation of wealth for people who already have it. But the notion of a highly productive nation with enough energy to meet its needs, and so just all that seems to be kind of out the window. So I agree that if AI does what we think it's probably going to do, universal basic income would be great. The question that I have is whether we'd be able to fund it, given the track that we seem to be on right now. All right, so let's take one more call here. All right, I love strange calls, and so let's talk to Chris from Wethersfield. Chris from Wethersfield, you have the floor.
Yes, I am taking advantage of the fact that you're interested in new cars because I'm doing the same thing. Mm. And I did homework, and I subscribed to the Consumer Reports, and their nice April issue had model after model of cars. And what I'm noticing is the front grills are different than any other front grills I've seen before. They're boxy, and they're black. They look like bared teeth with rusty braces. And they just look ugly and angry. And I'm looking at them as I drive, and I'm seeing that. I don't know if there's a reason for it, but have you seen the same thing?
Are you car shopping in an animated movie? That's the first thing I need to know. Are there signs that say Pixar? Where your car shopping?
I'm being so realistic. Yeah. I mean, you look at a model after model. The grill is in the shape of a box, and it's like black grill, not the kind of like what I remember the normal slope of a hood was kind of down, and you had the logo of the car, and it was shiny steel. This is not like that anymore.
Well, first of all, all kidding aside, I have no doubt that there's some truth in what you're saying. And, it's important to remember, cars are, in a very, very profound way, extensions of ourselves. That one of the reasons people get so upset if their car is dented is because the car has really become a carapace, sort of an exoskeleton for the person. So if your car is dented, it's like you're dented. And so probably to whatever degree people are walking around or driving around in a state of rage, it wouldn't be too surprising if the grills looked very, very enraged as well. So, Chris, really interesting observation.
Designers.
Yeah. So here's the assignment. Here's the assignment. Everybody, you're out there. By next week, and I assume we'll do Ask or Tell Me Anything on Monday. We probably will be having to draw the names of the callers on a chalkboard by then, because we seem to be going backwards with technology. But we'll still do the show. So look around, see if you think Chris is right. Study the grills of cars, and listen, we'll try to take a few calls. Next Monday will be our next Ask or Tell Me Anything, if we still are using days of the week by then. All right, so let me do one more call. We'll go to a break. And so let's go to Deirdre from East Hampton. It was East Hampton, New York, maybe. Deirdre, you have the floor.
Hi, Colin. Big fan of your show, and I just thought I'd call in and see. I just finished a book called Being Mortal by a Dr. Atul Gawande. I was wondering if you're familiar with it.
I'm sort of familiar with the book, and obviously I know Gawande's work. I kind of don't enjoy reading about death and mortality very much.
Well, I hate to say it's a sad state of affairs when we'd rather talk about death than what's going on in the world.
Right.
So the question I have is that, it's a really interesting book, and I'm about, 10 years late or a little over 10 years from when it came out. And, when you have aging parents or friends around you getting sick, it's a really interesting thing to talk about. And I don't really think it's morbid because it's something that everybody needs to face, is the question of quality over quantity. And I think the message of the book is, do you make choices to have a quality life and stay independent as long as possible, or do you just survive at any cost? And cost is a huge thing in America to survive. There's many people these days that are outliving their wealth, and especially if you want to do something like assisted living as opposed to just a nursing home. We looked at those things recently for a family member, and we were talking, on Long Island, which, is not far from Connecticut. We're talking $6,000 to $7,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a very interesting subject, and I'm surprised that so many of us avoid it, being that we're all headed in that direction.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was Mike Wallace, but somebody from 60 Minutes, this is quite a few years ago, was interviewing Woody Allen. And whoever it was said to Woody Allen, "Do you hope to live on in the minds and memories and hearts of your fans?" And he said, "No, I'd like to live on in my apartment."
A true New Yorker.
I'm sort of that school. What's the point of being Irish if you're not going to avoid and deny and things like that? But
Right.
but I also, I'm with you 100%. I mean, I went through all this stuff with my mother. Both my parents are gone, but when my mother was declining and it turned out she had dementia, and all kinds of choices had to be made, and they were all difficult and painful. And then I've been through 5 years where the people around me, ranging from my son to my partner, have gone through terrible, terrible illnesses where we just didn't know what was going to happen from minute to minute. And I mean, it has been a lesson about all that. The idea that you can defer these decisions or not engage or magically avoid thinking about them, it has been driven home to me that that's just not a particularly sustainable technique, no matter how much it appeals to me. So,
Right.
So thank you for reading the book, and thank you. I mean, you're absolutely right that the way we talk about it now, and it may be Gawande, I don't really exactly know who really got us going on this, but you hear that quality versus quantity idea quite a bit right now. And I guess it's not a big secret at this point. Don Noel, who was a legendary journalist here in Connecticut, was a columnist and an editor, I think, at the Hartford Times, and went to the Current, was with Channel 3. Just a wonderful, smart, thoughtful, elegant man who took his Quaker faith very seriously. He reached a point recently where he realized that he'd had enough. He was, I believe, in his early 90s, and he kind of announced it on Facebook that he was done, and he was ready, and he actually denied himself nutrition and hydration to hasten the process. And he did it with his usual elegance and thoughtfulness, and gave us all a chance to also say goodbye to him and thank him for the example he'd set. But, I mean, for most of us, we're probably not going to meet our end with the kind of dignity and thoughtfulness that Don managed. And part of it is because of exactly what you're calling my attention to. We don't want to think about it. It's easier to think about the new car we're going to get than it is to think about the end that we're going to have. And it's probably, a gap in our thinking. So I want to thank you for calling in and introducing it as a topic. And feel free to call back in if you want to talk some more about how this is playing out. All right, we're going to take a quick break right now. And I'm going to figure out who else is on the lines right now. But if you're not on the lines and you want to be, 888-720-9677. 888-720-WNPR.
On a dark night edge of blue, just like
right, that was a song picked out by the maestro, Dylan Reyes, who's actually still on vacation, but can't quite, he can't quit us. All right, so time to say some thank yous. Not the maestro, the Jedi Master, the Yoda himself. Gina Matruda is our technical producer today. Robin Doyen-Aiken and Isaac Moss are in the booth also, screening calls and stuff like that. And we're happy to have you call 888-720-9677. 888-720-WNPR. I almost left out Lily Tyson. This is a Lily Tyson Quality Entertainment production. I don't know. I don't know how the current budget bill will affect them. I know they have a lot of government contracts, Lily Tyson Quality Entertainment Productions. My guess is, though, that they'll pull through somehow. All right. So, let's do this one, and then we'll do John. We'll get to both of you. Let's do Mary Jane from Mountain Lion ridden North Stonington. Mary Jane, you're back on the show. Thanks for calling.
Yes. Thank you very much, Colin. I just wanted to commend Kelsey Mitchell, a veteran female basketball player, for supporting Caitlin Clark when I think other people were not supporting her. And I also wanted to tell people, since I'm a librarian, that the biography of Caitlin Clark is coming out, I think, in about 5 to 7 days from Scribner's.
So is Kelsey Mitchell, I'm sorry to describe somebody so appearance-driven, is she the blonde basketball player who...
No, that one was Sophie Cunningham, that was a very physical altercation. Now, Kelsey Mitchell, I don't know a lot about sports because there was no Title 9 or 10 when I was young, so I don't really know too much about sports, but I did see this Kelsey Mitchell, a veteran player, sticking up for Caitlin Clark, and most of the basketball players, or many, were saying mean things. And if you want to see the new Nike ad, you can Google Caitlin Clark Mamba Eyes and get a very artistic Nike commercial. It's lots of fun.
I think Caitlin Clark is amazingly good for women's basketball, and so I'm a longtime sports fan. I mean, I think everything about her, including the fact that she's willing to go into. I saw something where there was some challenge where she had to throw a football at various targets and stuff like that, and she did that really well too. She's sort of good at a lot of things, and she's game, right? Yeah. She's ready to take some risks. She's ready to try some stuff, and the fact that she's getting knocked around, I hate to say this because I want to be a bodhisattva about sports, but sports is really not, Steve Kerr notwithstanding, it's not a good, or Phil Jackson, not a good place for bodhisattvas. I actually thought the whole dust up with Sophie, where she wrapped up the other team's point guard on heading for a layup. Yeah, I think it's kind of good for women's basketball. There's a certain kind of fan that might have turned up probably his nose at women's basketball. But when stuff like that starts happening, it gets real for a certain kind of person. So I hate to say that because it is kind of not enlightened. But the truth is, having there be a little pushing and shoving, a little, trash talk, and maybe even a little bit more than that, not a bad thing for the WNBA. I'm sure I'll get mail about it. It's Colin, COLIN, at ctpublic.org. All right, I've got time for John, I think, and then we're going to have to say goodbye. But John, you will be the last caller of the day, and I know you will take that in very good stride.
Hello, Colin. I want you to know I was inspired by something I heard on your show a couple of weeks ago. You talked about the big beautiful bill, and you mentioned a thing called a rat in it, so I kind of was looking around about that, and in the Constitution for the Confederate States of America, they got a lot of stuff wrong, but they had a clause in there that said every law or resolution having the force of law shall relate to but one subject, and that shall be expressed in the title. And I think if we could get a constitutional amendment that says that, because like a big, beautiful bill doesn't tell you anything about what it is. And it's 1,000 pages long, and it deals with so many different things. Whereas if every law dealt with one thing and it was clearly expressed in the title, we would be able to actually track what our politicians are for and are against. and it would actually give a lot of the power back to the constituents.
Yeah, I was listening to Chris Murphy on Pod Save America. He was talking about this. And I mean, I think he was one of, like everybody else knows, this bill, which, has been substantially modified over the past 24 hours and is, as you say, more than 900 pages long. The people debating it and voting on it, they have no idea what's in it. And there are things that there are true rats in there. There are things in there that don't really have anything to do with the overall thrust of the bill and have been sneaked in by outside interests. And so the people passionately either supporting or opposing the bill have not had an opportunity to read the bill. And so I don't know if we could get back to that particular state of things that you just described. But at least, in most legislative bodies, there's a certain almost kind of an oral tradition that says, okay, we have to communicate about this. We need to know what's in the bill. We at least need to know what the public, be damned, they'll never know what's in the bill, but we need to know what's in the bill. We need to tell each other what we think is in the bill. I don't even think that exists anymore either. So you're right. This is no way to make sausages. We have to say goodbye. Go ahead. Just wrap real quickly if you can.
So is there, how would one go about trying to start a movement to get a constitutional amendment?
We can't amend the Constitution anymore. I don't think in our lifetimes the Constitution will be amended again. All right, well, but we don't have time to talk about that because we're done. Thank you so much for listening. Bring up the music, Mr. Amatruda, and we're going to wave goodbye to everybody.